When I was in recovery going through a program, the thing that really made me angry is when a therapist said to me, relapse is part of recovery. Because you go to a program thinking, okay, I'm going to succeed, it's going to work, and I'm going to stay sober. So we have a guest today who can attest to the fact that relapse is part of recovery. And I think almost everybody can, because I doubt that many people tried and succeeded the first time and it lasted forever. I doubt that. Anyway, welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm your host, Randall Carlisle, and our guest today is Colton Miller. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And just before we started recording, you were telling me that I asked you, how many times did you try to find recovery and you relapsed? And your answer?
Countless times. Yeah, like I was saying before, so I've been an addict since I was 14.
14?
Yeah, I started smoking weed when I was about 14. And I remember the first time I ever got high, right? Like something in my head like clicked, right? Like I remember thinking vividly, I want to feel like this for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
And I spent the better part of 16 years chasing that feeling.
What gave you that feeling other than weed? It was something more serious than pot, right?
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. Heroin and fentanyl and meth was my last addictions. So I started out with weed, and then eventually, I don't really like to say that weed is a gateway drug per se. I mostly think that weed is a gateway drug in a sense that it introduces you to people that do more drugs, right? So you start smoking weed with people, and then all of a sudden you start hearing about mushrooms and acid, and then you start experimenting with hallucinogens. And then, at least my story, my story went, I started with weed and tried everything under the sun but meth and heroin up until I was about 18. And then my dad kicked me out when I was 18 due to my own actions, right? I began stealing from, he was dating a woman and she had kids, and I had stolen some of her kids' medication, right? So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back with my dad. He kicked me out. And so, ever since then, I've been struggling and living with friends and feeding my addiction. Because shortly after, I started smoking meth because I didn't care. You know, I had grown up in an environment where I didn't feel like I belonged. I was passed around a lot as a kid. I lived with my mom until about 6th grade, and then my dad until about 8th grade, and then my aunt and uncle out in Indiana, and then back with my dad. So I had this overwhelming feeling of separation from everybody in my life.
Nobody wants me.
Right.
Go visit them. Stay with them for a while.
And that kind of stuff sticks with you as a kid. And so when my dad kicked me out, all that emotion came back, and I just didn't care. And I was working at a pizzeria, and one of the servers, I knew she was smoking meth, and I tried it, and you know, it was great. You know, the thing that sucks about meth and heroin is there's a reason why people throw their entire lives away for it, is because it's the greatest high out there, right? And it turns into a full-time job when you start doing it.
Explain that full-time job.
So. Definitely with heroin. Heroin's one of those drugs that makes you do it. You know, like at least with my story, when I first tried it, I remember I did it. So okay, I'll retrack a little bit to the first time I ever tried heroin. I was in a band with a friend of mine. We went out to California to play a couple shows out there. And I had a friend of mine watch his dogs at his house. And when we came back, there's like all these tinfoil, like squares of tinfoil everywhere with like these little lines on it, right? And I had never seen that before. I had never seen drugs done like that before. I didn't know what I was looking at. And I asked him, and he told me it was heroin. And everything in my brain is telling me to don't do this, right? But
do this.
But it's
Don't
right,
do
but it's
this.
right there in front of me, you know. And in my brain, he's smoking it. I had always thought that you had to shoot it. So that was the justification that I gave myself to try it. And I tried it once when I was 19, and I didn't do anything else for 10 years because it grabs you. It becomes a full-time, every day, 24/7, 365 job because it makes you sick, because you need to eventually, when you use it for long enough, you'll wake up and you'll wonder why you're pooping your pants and you're sweating and you're crying and you can't get out of bed. And then you call your dealer and he's like, "Oh, you're sick. Here, let me come over and fix that."
Sure.
And then you do it and then you feel better immediately. And it becomes that I don't want to feel sick again, so I have to keep doing this.
it.
Yeah.
But you don't get the same high.
No.
Right? It's just to maintain normalcy.
Right. Exactly. Because I smoked it for the first 5 years of my addiction, right? Like I said, when I tried it when I was 19, I was doing a lot of other drugs at the time. And then when I tried heroin, I stopped all that and just went full-time heroin. I was smoking it for at least 5 years. And then I was kind of able to hold down a job a little bit with just smoking it because I'm a chef. I've worked in a lot of pretty great restaurants in Salt Lake. But towards the end of my addiction, it became harder and harder to hold down a job because I was getting fired. I'm showing up late or not even showing up because I'm sick, you know. And then I found myself living on my drug dealer's floor. And he used to shoot. And I remember asking him to teach me how to do that, right? And then after I did it, I never went back. I started shooting up everything, and I started losing everything. It's really interesting how fast the addiction progresses once you start using needles. I've seen it a thousand times in the people I used to use with, like when people go from smoking heroin to shooting heroin, their life falls apart so fast. And that's definitely what happened to me. Towards the end of my addiction, I was living on the streets. This last time around, about the winter of 2023 to 2024, I was living on North Temple by the Jordan River.
Really?
Smoking about 150 blues a day because I was desperately addicted to fentanyl, and I was boosting to support my habit, and I was just living in this constant state of denial that I got this, right? Like I'm literally out there homeless, smoking drugs off tinfoil and saying, "I got this, it's all right, it'll be better, I can do this," right? And just living this lie of...
But did you know at the time, when you're living that lie, saying, "I got this"? Well, you're right. That's a miserable existence on North Temple by the Jordan River. But did you really believe that, or was it just to make yourself feel better about it?
It's kind of just to make myself feel better about it, because like I mentioned earlier, I had a job to do. Like my addiction's calling, and I got to answer. You know, it's every day. Nobody wants to be homeless, but I don't want to be sick either, and that comes first. And me getting well comes before food, shelter, everything else when you're out there. And it took me getting arrested to get clean. As for the story with a lot of people, I remember it was March 28th, 2024. I woke up in my tent by the Jordan River, smoked the last pills I had, and I was planning my boosting route for that day. And I went out to Utah County and I got arrested at Kohl's. And thank God, because I wasn't going to stop. You know, I'm the type of addict that when I start, I don't stop unless I'm intervened on. And I've proven to myself time and time again that I can't get sober by myself.
So you got arrested, and how did that, you finally find recovery after getting arrested? Didn't happen right away, right?
No. So I went to Utah County Jail for about 2 months. That's where I detoxed. And then after after about, so the withdrawals from fentanyl is horrific, way worse than heroin.
Really?
Oh yeah. I remember hallucinating in my cell, slamming my head against the wall because I can't sleep, like punching my legs because they won't stop moving, you know, like, and when I finally woke up and I felt normal, it was a relief. So I've been at this heroin thing and opiate thing for the better part of 10 years. And I remember when I woke up that day in my cell, not sick, I cried because I was finally free of it. I finally felt like I had experienced enough pain in my life to just say it's over with, because I've proven to myself that I can't get high casually. You know, I've proven to myself that there's no such thing as a recreational heroin user. As much as I tried to convince myself over the better part of a decade that I could be, it's not going to happen. And what I really attest to now in my recovery is the power of intention and the law of attraction, and using energy to shape your reality and manifest what you want in your life. Because I remember vividly in my cell praying and visualizing the life that I have now, right? Like my son was just born 2 weeks ago. I have a beautiful stepson. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful life. I have everything I've ever asked for. And I asked for all of this in my cell. And I've never felt that desperate for a new life before. And the difference this last time between the time, because this is my second time through Odyssey. The first time was in 2022. The difference this time and last time is I have something to live for, you know, because I really believe that in recovery, you need to find something worth living for. Because when I got sober back in 2022, I got out of Odyssey. I went to the Haven Outpatient, which is a different treatment center here in Utah. I went to their outpatient program and I graduated. I got off probation and I should have been fine, but all I was doing was working and coming home and sleeping. And it turned into me feeling my codependency coming up again. And I got with an ex and she was doing heroin. So I started doing heroin, and I let myself slip back into that mode because I wanted to, you know. I think subconsciously I wanted to get high, you know, and I think that going back to what you said in the beginning, that relapse is a part of recovery, I believe that to a point. I don't believe that we should be telling people that in recovery, because for me, I use that as an excuse for a long time.
And that's what I thought when I heard it. I thought, because I'm an alcoholic, and I was, and like you, I can't have a couple of drinks recreationally, because they turn into 100 drinks. But it was the first time I ever tried not to drink, and then for somebody to say relapse is part of recovery, I go, okay, well, yeah, you know,
yeah. And I
except it is. I mean,
but it really is, though. Yeah, in a sense that, like, we've spent I've spent almost half my life doing drugs. You know, it's gonna take more than a couple years to fix all that.
Sure,
there's gonna be a couple bumps in the road, and it's for me, I didn't try to get sober until my life completely fell apart, you know, and I wish I got sober before that. And I wish I realized the beauty of life before all this. But in relapsing so many times, and in getting up and getting down and learning about myself, and every relapse learning something more about why I relapsed, that I feel like is a part of recovery, is learning from the relapse and not just falling back into old behaviors, because I firmly believe there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. I hadn't
thought about that. That's a good.
I think a lapse is just, it's okay. You know, you messed up a little bit. You had a drink or two one night. That's okay. We'll get back on the wagon tomorrow. Like, no big deal. But a relapse is like you've fully diving back into your addiction. Things are getting worse. It's not,
Right.
I think there's a big difference. And I think the language we use in recovery is important. And
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on about my feelings about recovery and the community that I'm currently involved with. I personally believe that Odyssey House definitely saved my life, because with this program, it's unlike any other program where you get out and they're just kind of like, okay, we have an alumni meeting.
See ya.
We have an alumni meeting once a month, but other than that, have a good life. But Odyssey House like builds this community within itself, and it encourages, there's something every week,
Right.
there's something to stay involved. And I really think that that's the key in all this, is staying involved.
It's almost like a family, even
Yeah.
though, I mean, Odyssey is a huge, for people who don't, people watch all over the world this thing, but we've been around since 1971, and we've had literally hundreds of thousands of clients over the years.
Yeah. And I really think that, I mean, in working for Odyssey now,
Yeah, I should have brought that up.
I graduated, and then now I'm a full-time mentor over at one of our houses. And I really, really think that the Odyssey model and the therapeutic community model of holding each other accountable is really what saved my life. Because you hear all the horror stories about Odyssey in jail, about how it's a snitch program and how they're going to turn you into a snitch and all this. And it's really, you come to find that there's a difference between snitching and holding somebody accountable, right? Like, snitching is telling on somebody to get them in trouble for your own gain, but holding somebody accountable is holding them accountable for because you genuinely care about that person, and you want to see them grow, and you want them to be a part of a team and a bigger collective. And you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So in the house, we pull each other up on behaviors that we see, right? And it really took a long time for me to realize what they were trying to do is, it's not the drugs that's the issue, it's me. Like, I used to think for a long time, like, if I can just stop shooting heroin, like all my problems will go away. And it's not it, like you run from your problems for so long, and then you stop running, they're going to catch up.
Sure.
Well,
In a 12-step program, we call it white knuckling. I mean, if you don't deal, I mean, why did I drink all the time? And it's not if I stop drinking, it doesn't correct the reason that I was drinking.
Right.
So you got to deal with the root cause of everything.
Right. And understanding that there's a reason why you do that. Like, there's a reason why. And some part of my job as a mentor in Odyssey House, I'm a level lead, right? So part of what I do is I hold clients accountable in the level that they're at in the program. And I try to get them to see the self-sabotage in addicts is running rampant, right? I mean, it's what we do best. We so good at destroying our lives, right? And I try to point out to clients all the time that, like, hey, like, you are self-sabotaging right now. Like, why? Like, let's figure that out. Like, why do you not feel like you deserve a happy life? Like, do you not feel like, let's get to the root of the issue, right? And I did a lot of work over the years, understanding about myself that I don't have a drug problem, I have a me problem, and the drugs are just a symptom, right? And it's all these cliches that we hear that the drugs are a symptom of the problem, and it's really true, I've stopped doing drugs, you know what I mean? And I still have problems,
Sure.
I still have like bad days, and that kind of stuff doesn't go away, but it's learning how to deal with the bad.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah, because I used to, and that does make a difference. And the longer you're in recovery and dealing with your issues, the easier it is, because my thinking, I was a functional alcoholic for decades. And so, like, if you look at me mean, I'm going to get drunk.
Yeah.
If my boss yells at me, I'm going to get drunk. If my boss tells me good stuff and gives me a raise, I'm going to go out and celebrate and get drunk.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, it's.
And that's the thing about the holding reservations like that too, is you'll subconsciously find a way to make it happen.
Sure.
Like at least for me, in my experience, I always had if I ever get fired from this job, I'm relapsing, or if this ever happens, I'm relapsing, and I'll subconsciously find a way to make it happen just so I can relapse.
And what doesn't make sense to an outsider who doesn't understand addiction is how because you can make good money as a chef, right? Mm-hmm. Really good money.
Yeah.
A lot of drugs going on at restaurants, but how you could choose as an intelligent person with a skill that will pay you well, you would choose to go out on North Temple, be homeless, and every day wake up wondering where you're going to find the drugs to make yourself not feel sick.
Yeah.
Now, logically, a person looking at that says, you're crazy if you did. Why wouldn't you choose some other kind of life,
Yeah, it's very hard to explain for people that never lived it.
Exactly.
Right? And it's those same people that look at addicts and say, well, if he really loved his son, he would stop.
Right.
That's not what it is, man. It's they don't even like the drugs. I mean, at least for me, at the end of my addiction, I hated getting high. Like, I was a slave. I had to do it. It was I didn't have a choice. Everything else came second, like everything. And when you're in that active addiction mode, like, nothing else matters, not even your kids. And it's sad. And it's you make that choice to stay out there and to keep hustling and grinding, and you feel like you accomplished something because you boosted enough money to get a hotel room that night so you can celebrate. And it's just this cycle of insanity that we tell ourselves over and over again that like, this is normal, and living out in a tent on North Temple is normal, and it's okay, and it's not. And it's the fentanyl is killing our city, and it's really sad to see, man. Like, because I remember the first time I saw blues, the fentanyl pill that's been going around our city. I was homeless in Seattle. I had convinced. So I've done a lot of desperate things in my life, right? And I had convinced a friend of mine who was moving up to Seattle to let me ride in the back of his U-Haul to get up there, because I had told him I had a place to go. And basically, once we got up there, I said, I don't have anywhere to go. And he said, sorry. So I was homeless in Seattle. And that was the first time I ever saw the pills, those blue pills. And then I eventually ended up coming back to Utah. And then I got arrested a couple of days later. And then shortly after I got out of jail, the blues were here. And now the fentanyl is everywhere. And it's life or death at this point, man. Like at this point, if I relapse, I'm dead. I've seen so many people go out and just die over this, and I'm tired of it. I wish I could do something more than just spread a message of hope.
Right.
But sometimes that's all we can do,
And the problem is the addictive mind and body don't respond well to sensible messages in the midst of your addiction. And, when we talk about our parents program, I've interviewed a lot of women and moms and dads who have willingly let DCFS take their kids so they could be out on the street doing drugs.
Yeah.
And to an outsider, it's like, how could you compare the value of a child with the importance of this drug? I mean,
to an outsider, it doesn't make any sense.
None.
But to me, it makes perfect sense, because it hijacks your brain. It makes you believe that you need it to survive. And in living it, that's truly the experience that you feel, especially in my heroin and fentanyl addiction. It's just like air. You need it, like everything else comes second. You wake up and it's the first thing that you do. Right. And it's taken a lot of time and effort to put that type of energy towards more positivity in my life, because I truly believe that addicts are the most resourceful, intuitive, smart people out there that can get themselves out of any situation, right? And if they use that for good, they can really do a lot of good in this world. And that's what I've tried to do with my life now is just use that energy that I had towards getting high, towards building something new for myself, you know?
Think of the time that you spent every day trying to, first of all, get enough money to buy the drugs, then do the drugs, and then waking up every day and having and doing the same thing over and over and over. And if you invested that same amount of time and energy in like what you're doing now, working with people who are dealing with addiction, you'd be wildly successful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You'd also get, even though we don't allow a lot of overtime, you'd get a lot of overtime. You know?
And it's like therapy every time I come to work.
Sure.
You know, like I see myself in all these clients that I talk to, you know, and it's great to remember where I came from and not to get too big of a head on my shoulders, you know. I try to stay humble. I try to remember that I was there 2 years ago, you know, like my sober date is June 12th, 2024. And I'm never going back. It's one of those things where I don't think the quote unquote desire to use ever really goes away, because I mean, not the active, just like I'm not actively thinking about getting high these days, right? But there are of course times when it pops up and it crosses my mind, and it's all about what you do in those instances, right? You play the tape forward. We learn, we learned all these coping skills and we implement them, right? Yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that.
That's all right. I ask almost everybody, are you happy now? Were you happy as an addict in active addiction, and are you happy now?
I'm more happy than I've ever been in my life now. I don't think I've ever experienced happiness because what I feel now is a totally new feeling, right?
Well, you were numb for so many years.
So numb. Yeah. I wasn't feeling much for over a decade, you know? So yeah, to answer your question, I am happy now. And I know I'm happy now, and I know I wasn't happy then. I mean, there were times of relief and comfort when I would eventually cop and get well and find a place to sleep, or not have such a horrific day of running around being homeless and dirty, you know, like there were some days that were better than others, but I was never happy. And I truly am happy now. Like I said, my son was just born 2 weeks ago, and I've never experienced anything like that. I've never had something physical that I could hold in my hands and say that this is something I'm going to stay alive for. I've never had that. You know, it's always just been like a good job, or like some good friends, or like a decent house that's keeping me here. It's never been like a human little human being that needs me to survive, you know, like, and I have to be here. I have no choice, you know, and I am happy. I'm so happy. I've never been more happy, you know. I've never been more fulfilled. I've never been more grateful for my life than I am now. And I spent so many years trying to kill myself with drugs and trying to, you know, block everything else out, that now I love waking up. I love, you know,
and not needing a fix.
Right. And now the mornings aren't so stressful now. And like, I'm not waking up sick and needing to like do things against my will just to feel better, you know, like I'm tired of being a slave to the substances. And it's been a great 2 years. This whole recovery journey, like I'm coming up on 2 years, and this time around, man, everything's just been happening so fast and so great. And it's sometimes it scares me because I have imposter syndrome, and sometimes I feel like I don't deserve the things that are happening to me. And I just have to remember that I worked for this.
Yes, you did.
And I earned this, and nothing's going to take this from me. And God help the man that tries, you know?
And you're giving back. And,
yes.
And one of the ways to give back is by sharing a story like this, so that all of you out there watching or listening realize no matter how far down you've gone, there's always hope. So,
Absolutely.
Colton Miller, thank you very much for sharing your life.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
All right. And thank you all for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.